Senate Committee on Agriculture, Veterans, Broadband, and Rural Development for Wednesday, February 18th is now in session. How's it going? It's good to see you again. A lot has happened since last we were together. Before we do anything else, I'd like to ask us all to take a moment of reflection about our dear friend Melissa Hortman, who's no longer with us, but also our friend Senator Bruce Anderson, who is no longer with us for this committee either. So if we could please, let's all just take a moment to reflect on and observe a moment of silence in the name of those two individuals. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. You may see that some things are different around the Capitol this time around. If you haven't, you can tell that we're now at a very exclusive club with a velvet rope, and our friend Chris is going to let you in or out depending on how cool you are and whether or not you're welcome in. There are also some other, clear changes for things outside. I appreciate your patience as we get more acclimated to the changes around security that we're going to be experiencing this session. So if you have questions about what's appropriate or inappropriate, please don't feel shy about that and ask, and we'll let you know how we're rolling with things this time around. Now, we got a lot of new faces around here, some new faces, so we're all going to say hi. That's our first thing to do, is everyone who's on this side of that rope is going to say hello. So that means everyone is going to say hi. So let's start with Senator Kunish, if we could, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm State Senator Mary Kunish. I represent District 39, which are the communities of St. Anthony Village, New Brighton, Columbia Heights, and Hilltop, and Spring Lake Park, and happy to be here again. Senator
Gustafson, please.
I am Heather Gustafson, State Senator for SD 36. I live in Vadnais Heights and represent Vadnais Heights, White Bear Lake, White Bear Township, the largest township in Minnesota, Gem Lake, Circle Pines, Centerville, Lino Lakes, North Oaks, Birchwood Village.
Senator Dornick, please.
Gene Dornick, District 23, which would be all of Freeborn County, almost all of Mower County, parts of Steele, Waseca, and Faribault.
Senator Western, please.
Hi. Isn't that what you said?
That's good. That totally. No, points for that for perspicacity and efficiency.
Senator Tory Westrom from western and central Minnesota, Alexandria, 6 counties of Stearns, Douglas, Pope, Stevens, Swift, and Big Stone, out to the South Dakota border.
That was a bit of an emotional journey for me, Tory. I mean, you did it so quick, and then you just kept talking. Well done, sir. Mr. Olofsson, if you would, please.
Hi, I'm Eric Olofsson, nonpartisan fiscal analyst for this committee.
I'm Eric. I'm your ag dude from St. Cloud. Mr. Roth?
Nick Roth. I'm the committee administrator.
Ms. Spence, please.
Keely Spence, committee legislative assistant for the Ag Committee and the Veterans Committee.
Senator Kupek.
Thank you, Rob Kupek, Senate District 4, which is most of Clay and the western part of Becker County out on the western edge of Minnesota.
Senator Dames, please.
Senator Gary Dames from Senate District 15, which is Yellow Medicine, Last Carl, Lion, Brown, Redwood, part of Blue Earth.
And Senator Holstrom, welcome to the committee, and what's your story?
Michael Holmstrom from, let's see, parts of Hennepin, Meeker, and most of Wright County.
Thanks. Now, everybody back out there is coming out here to say hi. So let's go. I'm a friendly guy.
Hi, I'm Amanda Peterson-Heaney, and I'm the ag researcher for the Senate DFL caucus.
Hello, Tamara Grady, and I am LA for Senator Kupek.
Andy Larson, Senate Republican Research.
And I'm Matt Kelleher. I work in media and research for the Senate DFL caucus.
All of you, everybody.
My name is Owen Roseboom. I'm an intern for Senator Westrom.
Hi, I'm Sharu Soloff. I'm a committee page.
Hi, I'm Josephine Pacheco. I'm also a committee page.
My name is Riley Dahlberg, and I am an intern with Senator Putnam.
Willa Newman, intern for Senator Putnam.
I'm Ariana Misselt. I'm also an intern for Senator Putnam.
Hi, I'm David Wing, legislative assistant to State Senator Tory Westrom.
So that's all of us. I guess it's your turn. So if each of you could just introduce yourselves, that would be. super efficient. Our first order of business today is an agency overview from our friends at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. So if I could please ask Mr. Peterson, Commissioner Peterson and Deputy Commissioner Vaubel to come up to the rostrum. Please state your names for the record and commence your testimony when you're ready.
Mr. Chairman, members, Tom Peterson, Commissioner for the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and glad I'm cool enough to get inside the ropes.
Hi, good afternoon. Andrea Vaubel, I serve as Deputy Commissioner at the Minnesota Department of Ag.
So this is a display setting issue. So we'll just gotta go over here to settings. I'll just start talking for a minute while we're doing this. I just wanted to, we're going to do a department update. We also have Commissioner Bailey and Commissioner Chesset here, and Michelle Medina, most of you know, who is our legislative director. We also have our division directors, and new to our team is our new legislative liaison, Cindy Bergloff, and she is here too. And she represents us with our tribal governments too as well. And we also have other staff that can answer the important questions that the deputy commissioner and I cannot answer. Starting in on the first slide, we have just a quick, recap of Minnesota's ag profile. We have, here it said 65,000 farms, but kind of breaking today, we unfortunately have just today come out and we now have 64,000 farms. The USDA just released updated numbers, and that is tough to see, and there may be a little tweak in there. We're kind of still unpacking the numbers. The numbers really didn't change the last couple of years, and the national ag statistics through the USDA has been undergoing some changes, and so they may be catching up some. But it's still, it could be a, an indicator of some of the tough times that we are seeing out there. Also, one other piece I'd mention are the way they get to that is ag censuses that we fill out. And I run into more and more farmers that just don't always fill those out. And I encourage, and a lot of our newer farmers, it is important that we fill those out. I think I get 3 different surveys. I get a general farm survey, I get a horse survey, I used to get a goat survey, and I get a timber survey. But it is really important to fill those out so that all of our farmers are counted. And then you can see the rest of it. Just a quick reminder, we have about 500 employees, give or take a few, at the Department of Agriculture, and we promote, as you know, farm products of local, state, national, international markets. We respond to disease and pests that threaten agriculture and natural resources. We inspect things like grocery stores, convenience stores, as well as dairy farms. We regulate feed mills and fertilizer plants. And then other areas of main responsibility, we are the primary state agency responsible for protecting the state's food supply and a key player in protecting the state's natural resources. We are also the primary agency responsible for supporting and promoting the state's agriculture industry. You also can see on the right there, we carry out responsibilities through our main program areas, and we have most of our division directors here with us today, and we do encourage them to come to committees so that they can help answer questions and be present as we're discussing all of these. On the next slide, you'll see just a quick reminder of kind of a snapshot of our budget, and we have 24-25 here because we're in the middle of 26-27, but just gives you a reminder. This is actually more of our expenditures. You can see where we have more of our money is in protection services, and then we spend about 33% on the promotion and about 14% on admin. And then same on funding. You can see the breakdown that we have there. Not much has changed too much in my time as commissioner. We've had legacy funds for quite a while. General fund 38%, dedicated, those go up 2 or 3% per biennium in most of the given time. I do want to highlight the next one is the 13% of the USDA budget. As some of you may know, we get 13% of our budget comes through the USDA through parts of their programs like AMS, which is Ag Marketing Service, APHIS, which is Plant and Health Regulatory, Food Safety and Inspection, Forest Service, but we also get money from the Food and Drug Administration, the EPA as well. And then you may have also heard that on September 9th, the governor and Mayor Fry received a letter from the USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins freezing or suspending active and future awards to the state of Minnesota, and with really no guidance or follow-up immediately. And so that was a concern to the department, and as we tried to look at and unpack that and what that meant for the agency. Our immediate concern was high-path avian influenza and some of the money that flows through the agency to that, and also to the university and to the Board of Animal Health, because we did have active cases of avian influenza at that time. And so we worked with both Republicans and Democrats in our congressional committee with the, have a good relationship with the USDA Secretary's office to kind of understand what was going on there. It did kind of take some time. We did have some funding frozen to the University of Minnesota's poultry lab for about a day and a half, but it was concerning because we weren't sure who was going to be paying for the tests. We may have had to put a lot of that burden back on the farmers. Again, working with our congressional delegation, we were able to unsuspend that and get that money flowing again. It really never shut off, but we did get a letter, the state did, or the university did, indicating that, but then the board and the department also had received notifications on that. To this date, we, Deputy Commissioner Vobel and I were in DC 2 weeks ago. We met with the USDA. I met at the Secretary's office, also met with our congressional delegation, and the money has been able to keep flowing to the agencies. We have not seen an interruption, but we have also not heard anything that we're off the hook either. And so that is concerning because we do have companies in many of your districts. We have, Fergus Falls, Albert Lee, they have multi-million-dollar investments in machinery and other things that they have gotten a grant or cooperative agreement with the USDA, and we want to make sure those are honored. And again, able to go back and say, hey, we have a good track record. The letter also had asked for justification for our grants and reasonableness, and we're able to show that. And again, the USDA, when we were there, they confirmed that. And so hopefully with our relationships, we can continue to work on that. But I did want to address that because it is something that will, could be a concern. But we'll keep you updated, and for now, going well.
I was just going to take a little time to talk about the agency's anti-fraud efforts. So obviously for us, any dollar of fraud, waste, or abuse that goes out the door from us is unacceptable and personally offensive to us. So part of that means that the culture for us at MDA, we have a real one about shared responsibility, that it's everyone's job to make sure that the money is going where it's supposed to be going, and that we're following up and doing our due diligence to, just be responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. We're also very clear about what the reporting process is if anyone suspects fraud, waste, or abuse. So we have many people that can be contacted if there is any concern. They can talk to our compliance coordinator, our supervisor. They can talk to our general counsel. They could call up Commissioner Peterson himself, and we will follow up on any concerns that are brought forward. We are also part of a body that was created out of Governor Walz's recent executive order on fraud, the Office of Inspector General Coordinating Council, the OIGCC. MDA has a seat at that, which we take very seriously. It's a great organization or body where we're talking about how we can improve processes across the enterprise and share best practices to make sure that we're all doing what we need to do to protect those dollars. We also, in the last couple of years, have hired a compliance coordinator who is in charge of making sure that we're following all of our internal controls and strengthening those. He also does a number of just internal audits, so that we'll ask him to look at various programs to make sure that we're following what we need to be following and make any improvements based on his recommendations. That's been incredibly helpful for us. We also hired a grants administrator. So the grant work that's come out of our agency has grown significantly over the last few years. So we did hire somebody to just sort of centralize and coordinate across divisions to make sure that we're following all proper protocols, not just within one division, but across divisions within the agency. We also have review committees for all of our grant programs. So those are folks that many of you in this room, folks that are stakeholders, members of the public, we ask to review all of the grant applications that come into for various grant programs. have them review those applications and then make recommendations to the commissioner. He ultimately makes the decision, but relies very heavily upon the recommendations of those folks, so that we're getting separate eyes. It's not just internal staff that are looking at these, but folks from the outside as well. We also do site visits above and beyond what's required by the Department of Administration's Office of Grants Management. Many of the requirements are for 50,000 or above. Any grants 50,000 or above. We, for many of our grant programs, do 25,000 or above. We also have a really big belief in continuous improvement in this area. So we're always looking for ways to, especially for new programs or existing programs, to see ways that we can strengthen our internal controls and learn anything that might come about with each and every round that we administer. We also have made it a practice to look at any audits that come out of for other agencies within the Legislative Audit Commission and see if there's any recommendations that can be applicable to things that we could absorb into our agency. We also have been audited a couple times in the last couple of years by the Office of the Legislative Auditor. While no one likes to be audited, we welcome them. They've been very helpful in us just having a reflection upon the work that we do and ways that we can improve. We have one that will be coming out any minute now on the Ag Water Quality Certification Program. We also have one currently on our elk compensation audits, and we are happy to talk about those at any point and take our work with the OLA very seriously.
Next, getting into some of the program areas that would be of interest. The first one is the Dairy with an I program is what we call it, and this is similar to a program that we did in 2019. Senator Westrom worked on that a lot. That helps complement the federal milk program. That was just announced in mid-January as part of the farm bill that passed as part of the big bill. And that just opened up. So that's the Dairy Margin Coverage Program. And the state of Minnesota has an incentive for farmers to get into that program. And so when we had that in 2019, it helped Minnesota lead the nation in signups in that program, which ultimately, to me, really helped those farmers when they have tough times. So we had $3 million available from 2024. That sign-up is currently open now that the federal sign-up is open, and so we're continuing to work through that. We do understand there's a bill that the milk producers and others are working on, because when we did the language back, we based it off of 2022, and we do have some farmers that started in the years 23 to 25. I checked today with our staff, and we estimate that there was about 70 farmers that started in those years. But maybe about 40 of them are not partnerships that this would be applicable to, and a couple of those may have already quit. We just don't know, but that's a ballpark to give you an idea. The idea to do that bill earlier is so we can get the payments out the door. If we have to wait till May, payments will be into June. If we can get that done sooner, it would really help us move that along. So just want to make a pitch for that. We have about 1,560 permitted dairy farms in the state. That number will grow a little bit because we have dried off dairies in the wintertime. Again, this program only impacts dairy cows, not dairy goats.
Okay, this is a new program for us, Farm to Food Security. So you might recall the Local Food Purchasing Assistance Program, or LFPA, which is a federal program that we had significant grants for. We did, unfortunately, you'll recall, get a significant cut for that last January. So you also kindly created a state-level LFPA. And this program, to remind you, does support local farmers and producers by funding projects to purchase Minnesota-grown and raised food and distribute it to Minnesotans experiencing food security. You allocated $700,000 each year of the biennium for this program. We did rename it to Farm to Food Security just to make sure there was no confusion with the existing federal program and make sure that, sort of differentiate that from a program that has different requirements and eligibility items. And we're also very grateful for this. We're talking to other agencies or other commissioners and secretaries and directors across the nation. They're very jealous that we have a state-level LFPA, and I suspect we'll see other states take note. The request for proposals is going to be released very soon, like maybe tomorrow. So look out for that. If you have any folks who might be interested, please send them our way. We also have our down payment assistance grant, which is a somewhat new program. It was established in 2023. Thank you all for that as well. $1.25 million in each fiscal year 26 and 27, and then $1 million in fiscal year 28 and thereafter. When the program was created, it was $15,000 of a grant for first-time farm buyers. You all upped it to $20,000 last year. We do administer it through a lottery application with priority for farmers who earn less than $100,000 in gross farm sales and/or grow cannabis, industrial hemp, or specialty crops. And grain and livestock farms can meet the priority if gross sales are under that $100,000 mark. Within fiscal year 23, 24, and 25, we supported about 112 farmers. We have an additional 17 awards so far in fiscal year 26. They've either closed or we have a closing scheduled. And a remaining 45 awards are pending purchase agreements. This is another program that, again, is somewhat new, so we're always looking for ways to improve it. We found some ways that maybe this could be administered better, so we're working on what we can do administratively or with you to strengthen and get these dollars to the folks that need it most. Just a quick snapshot of the breakdown of awardees from the fiscal year 23 through 25. You'll see to the left the farm location. There's a map, and it's hard to see on the PowerPoint, but we do have a legislative report that's really well done and quite extensive that we're happy to send to you, again, if you have any interest. And just farm type breakdown, so there's 27% were livestock, 2% cannabis or hemp, 29% specialty crop, and 42% are grain or row crop producers.
I had nothing to do with Pine County getting the most grants, so I just want to point that out, but it's very impressive. Going on to the grain indemnity account at Senator Kupek has worked very hard on. That was funded with $10 million in the general fund from FY 2024 after we had multiple failures. We currently have $10,700,000 in the fund due to accrued interest. We unfortunately had our first claim on this in 2025. That was a failure of the Hansen-Mueller facility in Duluth. They also own one in Superior, Wisconsin, and Grand Forks, North Dakota. To date, we have received 19 claims that total $1.1 million. 842,000 of those transactions are in Minnesota. And we also have some legal funds that would be worked with that as well. I just want to also mention the timeline on it, because if you get questions from farmers about how long it takes, you can't kind of see, but you have the handout, I think, that we're just on 90 days of this Hansen-Mueller. And some of the ones like Carlstadt up in northwest Minnesota, or the buckwheat growers, central Minnesota, Global Processing was on in Senator Dornick's area. Those, you can see how long those days take to settle. These are very complex cases that we have to work through, and with buyers and bankruptcies and sellers and different pieces. We also are working with several states to collect information, which has been hard to validate some of the claims. Our Attorney General Ellison signed on with 8 other states to suit to get that information. That's the National Association of Attorney Generals, or NAG, which will take about 30 days. Once we have that information, we should be able to validate the claims quickly. And then also, and here's just the process. The claim is submitted by the farmer, and then validated on information from the buyer, and then if valid, the payment is initiated. I also want to mention that, MDA will also be going to bankruptcy court to recoup the costs there is oats or grains in storage, and so we'll be, trying to recoup some of those costs if we're able to. Hopefully we will. That money that's recouped will go back into the indemnity fund too as well. And then next interesting topic is our elk damage to crops and fences. This is a big issue. Nobody in this district has the elk herds in their district. They're all in Senator Johnson's district, but we do have a long-standing program that helps pay the claims for the elk herds. And you can see that we have had far more claims than we have money, and that kind of what gets down to it. And here's some of the more details. If you remember right, we really appreciated the committee coming forward with some more dollars. But you can see that what was appropriated, we have a backlog, and essentially when we get to the end of the fiscal year, we have to hold claims until we get to, June 30th and July 1, we can start paying claims. But you can see we're already in a backlog of claims there, and we have an anticipated shortfall of 138,000 for fiscal year 26 and 83,000 for fiscal year 27. And that elk herd is also tied to, our elk account is also tied to our wolf account, where we have we pay depredation on livestock kills, and you can see very similar there. A few years ago, the legislature gave us the ability to move money between the two accounts. So, you know, up until the recent years, we either had not as many elk claims or not as many wolf claims, so then we could kind of backfill and fill that. Our problem the last couple of years is we have too many elk claims and too many wolf claims. A lot of that, you know, can do with, we do have a lot of cattle, you know, claims, and we're not even into, you know, spring calving season yet. And you can see on this next one where we had, for example, 275 appropriated in 26. We paid 217 from our backlog last year, and we already have 41,000 in claims submitted. And what that means is when, you know, a farmer calls me or texts me a picture of a dead calf at 6 in the morning, you know, and how do I get paid? And I have to say, yeah, you're gonna have to wait till, you know, we'll go through the process, but we're gonna have to hold your claim. And calves are worth a lot now, you know, and so they're gonna have to wait till, you know, July to get paid. But we're already anticipating, as you can see, a shortfall of 210,000 in 26 and 230,000 in 27. One other thing we're working on in that is a federal grant that is available. We haven't been able to access that for a couple of years. We do have an active grant in, but sometimes that dollars we're able to help with the depredation and also some of the non-lethal mitigation efforts for wolves. And so we'll continue to work on that. That's through the Department of Industry. But again, Minnesota has more wolves than all 48 or 49 states combined, other states combined. We're also close to, you know, possibly delisting the gray wolf, and but that wouldn't necessarily have an impact on the indemnity account, but it could perhaps. Next big issue for us is high-path avian influenza, or H5N1 as it's known. And you can see we've had detections in poultry, detections in wildlife and poultry continue. We work closely with the Board of Animal Health with this in partnership. Depending on where we are in the outbreak. Dr. Hayes is here too if we have more questions with the Board of Animal Health. Since January 2025, we've had 35 cases in Minnesota, 27 are in commercial premises, 8 are in backyard premises. We also have we're enrolled in the U.S. National Milk Testing Strategy since last February. If you recall, we had one case last year in dairy cows, which is a little weird. And I can talk more about that if you'd like. And then we had 10 cases in 2024. So we do monitor dairy farms, but we'll be going to just testing milk silos at plants coming up soon. The interesting thing, I think, to the committee is what we have in our ag emergency account. We have about $2.5 million with more money to be reimbursed. And I always say, to me, it's hard to know, but that's a strong number. You know, I really appreciate the support of this committee over the years that we've had that money. I always say it helps me sleep at night. I can still sleep at night with the $2.5 million in there. And you can see here, you know, the problem with Minnesota is, you know, with this is where our poultry farms are located a lot of times is where our water is, you know, and in those areas where our dairy farms are, we have a lot. But I would compliment to our dairy farmers and our poultry farmers on biosecurity measures. The current administration has put a real emphasis on biosecurity audits, which I think is a good thing. And we continue to work through that, and hopefully we can keep our cases low. But however, we are in the bird migration. You know, I've seen like swans this last week. Everybody's so excited about it on social media. It gave me a lot of anxiety because we were starting to see the migration start, you know, and we just don't know. Some, you know, we've had years where it's exploded in the spring, and we've had years where we had 2 cases in the spring and more of it came in the fall. But as Dr. Hayes has said, it's kind of endemic now. The good news is I feel like, you know, our agency is well prepared to handle it. We have a strong partnership with the board, as I said, but also the University of Minnesota, the USDA, and our industry partners.
We always like to do a quick refresher and talk about our bonding request. So the Rural Finance Authority, for folks who aren't familiar, is, or RFA as we call it, is the state's ag lender with a mission to develop farm resources. It started in the 1980s during the farm crisis. We offer low-interest loan programs for a variety of farm activities, including land purchases, farm improvements, equipment, meat and poultry processing, et cetera, et cetera. We participate with local lenders who lend all the money, and then we buy back 45% of the loan, and the borrower pays the lender, and the lender pays us. It's funded in part by sale of state bonds, which the RFA must pay back. So in light of that, we do have a bonding request this year. $50 million is in the governor's proposal for the 2026 legislative session. You all did give us a $50 million appropriation in 2023. We have about $26 million left on that 2023 authorization. Loan requests have increased quite significantly due to the high interest rate environment. So since we have such a low rate, it's very attractive to a number of folks around the state. We expect to exhaust the funds by approximately July of next year, which is why we wanted to come to you now. That, of course, can fluctuate depending upon usage over time. It could be sooner than July, it could be later. We, of course, will keep you closely updated on that, but we watch it closely and, again, want to make sure we're ready, that there's no gaps. We're proud of the performance measures of the program since 1986 until last year. We had 3,951 loans issued totaling $390.3 million. Losses taken on 24 of those loans, so that's 0.0017% of total dollars in default. And we have currently 1,008 active loans with a balance of over $139 million. We also, I just have to give a shout out to our RFA board. We are governed by a board that is appointed. They are fantastic and incredibly engaged and are very helpful in decisions we need to make as we build out these programs. We're also incredibly proud of our East Grand Forks potato facility. It's a building that has been, was built for the MDA in 1993. It's about 8,000 square feet. In 2025, you all did appropriate some dollars to fix the new roof, which we have had, but there's many other maintenance projects that we have had to defer. We also were able to get some additional new windows a few years ago, but again, a lot of maintenance that needs to happen with this particular building. So, and just a quick breakdown of the budgets we have for our East Grand Forks program. We have our pest surveys at $65,000, general fund appropriation of $240,000, potato inspections at $132,000, and our seed potato certification program is $489,000. So because of that, we do have a request of $1.38 million for the building improvements and maintenance. There's a list of all the items that need to be taken care of. One thing that's really beautiful about the placement and about the East Grand Forks potato facility is we share a parking lot with the USDA AMS as well as the Northland potato growers. So it's a perfect spot for a potato grower who needs to do the work they need to do in that area, and we're incredibly proud of it. So we want to make sure that we can maintain it and have it survive well into the future. And with that, I did just want to say a quick note of thank you, since this is our first committee hearing of the session. Just that, you know, Tom and I sit up here and we talk about all these amazing programs, but we have the staff back here and the folks that aren't here that are just like the most incredible people who make this stuff happen and are incredibly passionate and dedicated to their work. So I just wanted to say thank you for all of their work to make all of these things happen. So with that, we're open for questions.
Thanks very much, folks. Members, questions? Okay, I guess we're done. Really, we got nothing? I was kidding. Senator Kupek.
I was being generous here. Actually, can you give us a little update on where we're at with any of the other diseases that, you know, we've been on the lookout for here in the state besides high-pathogen aviation?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Kupek, if I could phone a friend, since we have the state veterinarian here, it would make sense if he would join us here, if that's okay.
Dr. Hayes, if you would please come up to the table, state your full name for the record, and commence your testimony when you're ready.
Dr. Brian Hayes, State Vet for Minnesota, Executive Director for the Minnesota Board of Animal Health. Chair and Senator, the question about diseases that we're concerned about right now, probably top of my list, next to high path, and we're still dealing with avian metapneumovirus that I talked about last year, still circulating, still causing a lot of havoc in the poultry industry. But New World screwworm is really the poster child this year. So that is a parasite that's been migrating northward into Mexico, and closest detection was actually about 75 miles from the Texas border. That one's been resolved. That was a case of an animal that had been smuggled in. So incident that was just dealt with, and no more cases. The more concerning evidence we're seeing is a little bit farther south, about 200 miles from the border. There actually seems to be a resident population of these flies now. So we're seeing weekly another 3 to 6 cases in Tamaulipas, Mexico, which is a border state to Texas. And those are all cases that have not moved anywhere. Those are resident animals, and we're talking about dogs and pigs and horses, even some people, calves, little bit of everything is getting infestation from that. So that's a concern. The governor for Texas actually declared a state of emergency because of this parasite. They don't have it in Texas, but he's anticipating that it likely will arrive in Texas probably this year. So increased efforts by the USDA and our partners down in Texas to try to keep it at bay, but it's a concern. For us in Minnesota, to me, it's a concern when we think about the companion animals that are traveling to and fro. So we get a lot of vacationers that bring their pets with them now and vacation in areas where this fly happens to exist. So that's a concern here in Minnesota. What are we doing to prevent that from hitchhiking back on pets or even travelers that are returning from vacation?
Thank you, Dr. Heft. Senator Kupek?
No, thanks. That sums it up. I was wondering if you were going to talk about screwworm, so thank you.
Senator Kunish, please.
Thank you. I'm kind of curious as planting season starts and we're looking at some of the issues around the Twin Cities and the greater Minnesota around labor. And I'm just wondering what you are hearing and what you are seeing when farmers who have relied on migrant and immigrant labor are seeing probably that dry up. And what are what are we looking at as we go forward, not just to the spring, but through the summer and then especially into the fall when it's time to bring those crops in?
Commissioner Peterson. Mr. Chairman and Senator Kunish, I feel better this week than I did last week, but I am very concerned. Before everything happened in Minnesota, we already had a labor issue, especially on farms and agriculture. That's one of the reasons we've seen a huge growth in the H-2A visa. When I started, seeing H-2A visas many years ago, it was really in the, specialty crop business. We'd see people in the spring and the fall because it's a seasonal, visa. But, as workers, have dried up, or high school kids or the rural population or whatever, we've added it into dairy farms and pork farms, and we've added it now into crop farms, especially in the spring and fall. And, and these visa holders and the immigrant labor are very important to farms. And I always, when I visit farms that, that have H-2A or have, and use immigrant labor, many of these families or people, they come back year after year, and so it's not uncommon to see families that have returned to the same farm for 20 years, and a farmer told me, he said, hey, I'm putting them in a $100,000 and some tractor or a $500,000 combine, or they're, running a milking system. I want consistency. I want people. But, what we've seen happen in the, in the last couple of weeks or month is we've seen, concerns about that. We've seen, farmers have told me that they have about half of the workers that they're planning on for this spring. Like I'd say, like, none of us wanted maybe this to happen when it happened and how it happened, but, if it had happened in April or May, we'd be in a different situation too. And so I just really, I'm concerned about how this is going to work, because as we talk to the farmers that do this, that immediate concern right now too is like landscaping, and so we have big nursery and garden centers that use a lot of H-2A workers. They're planning on coming soon. We start in greenhouses next week, for the potted plant season in April and all this. And so, but, they're finding workers, they can go to another state, and they can go work somewhere else where it's safer or easier. And so, assuring those workers, people are working really hard to ensure that Minnesota is a safe place to come and that we have protocols in place to have those workers come. So hopefully, that we can continue that. But, right now there's still some concern about how that is going to play out this spring. And so hopefully, with, moving forward on this, that we'll see some, progress and have the workers that we need.
Senator Kunish?
Thank you. And would you say that would probably be the same scenario for like these processing plants that also rely on those kind of labors?
Commissioner Peterson?
Are you seeing anything happening there?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Kunish, yes. And so, you know, as we got into a really, you know, I'd say it started slow into farms and agriculture process. We didn't see, you know, ice on farms really until just a couple weeks ago, you know, and so that was a concern. But then also in the processing plants, what we saw was either a big slowdown, especially in some of our plants that maybe do halal processing. And that's a big market for Minnesota. That is a growing market. That is going to allow our farmers to sell sheep, goats. We're seeing a tremendous opportunity for that. But instead of importing from Australia and New Zealand, you know, we're going to change that market here in Minnesota, and we're doing that. But we saw a huge shutdown in that plant, in that area. We saw some of our bigger plants have to cut a shift. You know, they maybe had to cut a third shift because they didn't have enough workers. And keep in mind, Minnesota, we have a just-in-time delivery system in our hogs and our turkeys. You know, you shut a plant off, you know, when a isoween or a baby pig is born, they know the day it's going to go to the plant. You know, and so when you shut a shift down, you're going to back up that whole system. And we saw that in 2020 when we had COVID and we had, you know, sick people. And so I am very glad because that had just kind of started to hit, you know, about a week and a half ago, you know, and so had that, continued, I think we would have seen more problems within our state. And so I'm glad to see, you know, that things seem to be coming back to normal, but we're still going to be short workers for a while, so.
Senator Kunish? Members, other comments or questions? Seeing none, do you have any, I don't want to say this in a morbid way, but final statements? Last
Mr.
words,
Chairman,
Commissioner Peterson?
wow, I can't pass that up. No, I do want to thank everybody for all the work that, you know, we did this last year. I feel like the agency's in good shape. Our budget, you know, we'll have some minor policy, you know, things coming forward, but I appreciate all the work. And we do have a tremendous staff, as the Deputy Commissioner said. We always feel free to reach out to us on anything, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. So thank you for having us.
Thanks very much, Commissioner Peterson and Deputy Commissioner Bravo. Folks, for the record, we do have a quorum present. Our next bit of business is an overview from the Office of Broadband Development, an update on state programs and the BEAD program. So Director Mackey, if you would, please. And Mr. Beaudry, please state your full names for the record and commence your testimony when you're ready. And don't take it personally that the entire Department of Ag is leaving right now.
Come on.
Patrice?
They need us for precision ag. Well, good afternoon. My name is Bree Mackey, and I'm the Executive Director at the Office of Broadband Development at the Department of Employment and Economic Development, or DEED.
Devin Bowdry, Government Relations Director at D.
And I'm also just going to point out that we are lucky to have Deputy Commissioner Kevin McKinnon here as well, who happens to be my director. So happy to have that support here. So thank you for the opportunity to present what has been happening in broadband world over the past few months, and just waiting for the slide deck to come up. But I also, before I forget, just want to say that it is always an honor and privilege to represent the Office of Broadband and really the team that does the hard work. You know, we're strong and mighty with our office, but oh, they have it? Okay, you have it. Great. Then we'll keep moving. So slide number 1 just walks through a little bit, and I show this every year, is the broadband policy framework. So what was created by the legislature is we do have statutory goals that we are charged to try to meet. We have the Office of Broadband that was created through the Governor's Broadband Task Force, and the task force is still active today. We do a robust mapping program that's been in effect since 2008. So always collecting data and making sure that our mapping is as accurate as can be. And then finally, we have tools in our tool belt to deploy infrastructure grants, as well as digital skills and helping to support those that need once you do have broadband. We'll move to the next slide, and that's Meet the Office of Broadband Development. So, all right, we got the slide deck now. Good. Okay. And so again, our office was established by state legislature in 2013. We have 10 staff that are located throughout the state of Minnesota, many of us in greater Minnesota. I always like to point out myself, I do not have what is defined reliable broadband in Winona County, as the statutory language states. We do have programs, again, the border-to-border grant program, the low population density program, the line extension program, and as you recall, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act created the BEAD program, which is Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, administered through the U.S. Department of Commerce. And then also through the same act, the Digital Equity Act was created. However, that was terminated by the Department of Commerce in May 9th, 2025. I'm going to go through each of these things later in more detail. So in 2025, we did have many program milestones. Our report is out and available, but I did want to highlight a few things that we're particularly proud of across the state. Our office was able, with our partners, our grantees, our ISPs and communities, to close 58 projects in 2025. We did initiate a second round of line extension program, which saw 13 different projects and was able to build direct to homes over 687 locations. And then we also did a third round that saw 16 projects for over 1,000 locations built through 2025. We were also able to provide another fourth round of the line extension program at the end of the year. We had a little over $10 million, and we're able to continue those funding sources. And as a reminder, those dollars are through the capital projects dollars in ARPA. And then one of the things that we were able to do is submit our final proposal to NTIA on the BEAD program. And I, again, will walk through that. I gave an update last year, but there were some changes that required us to submit a new proposal to NTIA. We did that. Our deadline was September 4th. We received notification on the 19th of December that that was approved by NTIA. And then finally, I want to, on this page, remind everyone we launched an updated map platform as well. So really interactive. Again, we'll show it a little later on. Continuing on with some milestones is our Connected Nation vendor. So the vendor we have been using for many years completed field validations for over 70 grant projects. So those are being able and going out monitoring throughout the projects as well as closeout. And that was over 35,000 locations where BSLs were checked, looking at what they are required to do with speed testing. We also, with the BEAD program, solicited letters of support across the state, and as you can see, we received many from across sector of different organizations, cities, hospitals, regional groups, labor unions, and tribal entities because of the robust program that we have in the office. Again, we continue to work and provide administrative and technical support to the Governor's Broadband Task Force, which actually did meet this morning. Facilitated over 9 meetings with what we have created as a charter group, a broadband permitting and land use charter group that is a group of state agency members to talk through the permitting process. I was able to hire an archaeologist through all of that work, and that happens to be a broadband environmental and land use coordinator, and very fortunate to have that archaeologist on our team. And we do keep an updated contractor list, and finally, the Telecommuter Forward program, we have 50 communities now who have been recognized in recognition of that work. All right, so a lot of great milestones, but there still are unaddressed needs across the state of Minnesota. These numbers were updated in December. And just pointing out two numbers on there is there still are 121,000 homes that do not have 25/3 access across the state of Minnesota. I did leave up there the 24 numbers so you can see we are moving the needle. And then there's still 155,000 homes without access to 100x20. Again, we are moving the needle with all of these closeouts, and obviously our internet service providers are working hard with their own capital to continue to build as well. I'm pointing out that the BEAD eligible locations, this is often very confusing, is of those locations that still don't have access, there are almost 75,000 locations that are eligible for BEAD, which means about half are not eligible based on the NTIA definition of broadband needs. I'm also, if you see the dots on there, you can kind of see where the unserved and underserved locations are. You have it in front of you. I know it's hard to see up on the screen. A little breakdown across the state. The next slide up there is just showing a granular look at unserved, underserved, and unserved locations across the state, so you can see kind of just a snapshot of where all of the red is still locations, high density areas of where the unserved locations are. Underserved is the purple, and then served with at least 100x20 in the green. Our following slide breaks it down even more by where are those that are lacking 25/3 or have it broken out there in different colors. Pointing to the top there, this is 25/3, and statewide 93.8 still or have broadband at 25/3. But if you break it down even more, only 85% of our rural communities. So you can see there is a gap in greater Minnesota. The next slide breaks it down by the 100x20. Again, look at the numbers. Statewide, 92% have it, but in rural Minnesota, only 80%, almost 81% have the 100x20, which is our 2026 statutory goals. All right, so mapping, as I talked about, you know, we work again with our mapping vendor who helps us support our interactive maps as well as out in the field. So when we are doing closeouts or we are doing spot checks, they are with us running speed tests. And again, 35,000 locations were checked over the last year within those 70 border-to-border grants. I also this is very interactive. It's pretty easy to use, but we are always happy to walk through our map platform with anybody, and we can also happy to run maps by congressional districts as well. So if you want to see what is happening in your district, and often we'll get a call from someone that says, I received a call from X, Y, and Z, can you help me out? We can go in, find that location, find if there's an enforceable commitment, or if we are building, or if there's already a provider there, and make sure that we are connecting folks to the right providers that are available in those areas. So please don't hesitate to reach out if there is some sort of mapping data that we can be helpful with. Going in a little bit more specifically to our broadband grant program. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 3 state broadband funded programs that the legislature has appropriated either general fund dollars or capital projects dollars towards. The border-to-border grant program, the low population density program, line extension program, and then as I mentioned, the federal broadband program, which is BEAD. So for our state border-to-border grant program, it was established in 2014. It provides a public-private incentive, financial incentive, to help our ISPs deploy broadband to the unserved and underserved locations, which are often the most costly and difficult to serve. This is on a reimbursement basis and will pay up to 50% of the eligible costs and up to $10 million as a cap. You did increase this from 5 million to that 10 million, knowing again these projects continue to be more costly as they are the most difficult in the 2023 legislative session. The lower population density program was established in 2022, and this really recognized, again, the most difficult, hardest places are to serve and helps make a business case and incentives for our internet service providers to be able to build out. We're talking sometimes density is maybe 1 a mile, a home or a BSL that needs to be served or more. So you can see where a monthly service fee is challenging for our providers without that public-private incentive. This pays up to 75% of the eligible expenditures, and again, that $10 million cap. All right, and then the next one slide will break down overall through the 10 rounds of border to border, the 3 rounds of the low population, and you can see over $400 million has been spent on grants, again, made available by the legislature. But it is really important to recognize that this doesn't happen without the local match, whether that is our internet service providers putting in their private investment or local units of government also recognizing how important broadband is to their communities. So since that, over 119,000 locations have been served. Just a little bit breakdown as of where we are right now. So we still have grants open from round 7 through 10 that were awarded, and that was over 141 projects. Of these, 91 projects have been built, 53 are fully closed, and we're in the process of closing another 38. And that probably changed today because our grant administrators are working really hard to close as fast as we can so that we can reallocate capital project dollars out. And then there's some additional numbers just on the percentages. So we are hoping within the next few months to close another 47 grants out. The line extension program was created in the 2022 legislative session, and really the purpose of this is to expand that existing broadband infrastructure directly to the homes of unserved locations. It is for BSLs that do not have service of at least 25 by 3. When they build, it has to be 100 by 100 right away. They have a year to build this program. The next slide is just breaking it down by each of the rounds. And as I mentioned, I do want to focus on the round we just awarded at the end of 2025. We were able to make about $10 million available. This program was funded through the capital projects dollars. So as projects are coming in, we want to reallocate those dollars out as quickly as we can, and we'll probably do another round 5, as quickly as we can with an abbreviated timeline for the application process. The capital projects dollars do need to be spent by the end of 2026, and we know there are a lot of locations that are still eligible and need to be served, and we want to be good stewards of those dollars. And so we will continue to work with our internet service providers to be able to move that forward, but they will not have a total of a year in that particular case. So it's going to be a really compressed timeline and season for them. But what I've heard from them is they're willing to do it, and oftentimes these are already areas that are engineered in a plan at some point. So they're not starting from ground zero. And then you can see throughout each of the wards how many locations, how many counties are being served. Reminder, this is a self-registration program, so homeowners can go on and register themselves if they feel that they do not have the service they need. And then before we put those out for bid, we are verifying with our mapping vendor, with other enforceable commitments, whether the USDA has something, other commerce, to make sure they are eligible, and then we will put those out for bids for our internet service providers, so kind of a reverse auction. But again, this is a very quick program to deploy broadband. People immediately within that year get a broadband line to their house by fiber. All right. So BEAD. So as you all recalled, we talked at length of the $652 million that Minnesota was allocated through this program. We had originally put our proposal together, but in June, on June 6th, the administration decided that we did a policy notice and we needed to start that process over, of which we did, and we were able to execute that within 90 days, which is very challenging. So thank you to all of our providers, partners, the team members who put such hard work into making that happen, because if you recall, the plan we did originally was over a year in the works. So with that, we had a total application. Now remember, this is also the tech neutral approach. So our original plan was to match to border. That was the directive we had, as closely as we possibly can. But with the policy notice, it was required to be a tech neutral. So all applicants could apply regardless of the technology at the start. And we did have applications and eligible project cost of a little, almost $570 million, with a request for BEAD of almost $380 million. We had match dollars. You can see the average cost within that, the lowest cost within this, and then the highest project cost that we were able to put forward. More so, the next numbers is with that, we had 58% of the locations funded with fiber, 25% with LEO or low orbiting satellites, and 17% with fixed wireless. You can see there's a difference between the $652 million and the $378.9 million. Those dollars are what are called non-deployment dollars right now by the Department of Commerce, and we have not received guidance yet on how we are going to be able to use those dollars. Every signal is going that the states will be able to keep those dollars, but we will get guidance on how those can be used. Right. So next steps in the BEAD process is we now received our notification from NIST, which is a part of the Department of Commerce that handles the budgetary and the financial systems, information and systems. And now we have to submit that notice of funding award that within 30 days. At the same time, we now have 6 months to contract with our grantees. Those timelines run together. It's not 30 days and then 6 months. It's actually in the same timeline. So we need to finalize our grant agreements with our grantees during that time frame. And then we're working on contract language that meets both state and federal regulations. There are terms and conditions that NTIA and the federal government require, as well as we know what the state requires in our grants and procurement. We're also preparing permitting and environmental documentation as we go. This is something that everything has to be in hand before construction can start in the BEAD projects, where with state, often you can start certain areas that wouldn't be impacted, but in this program, all things need to be on hand, and we do know that that does take some time to do that accurately and go through the systems. And then we are engaging in communication and outreach to constituents, local units of government and ISPs. Because of that gap in non-deployment, I also often get a question, why aren't you doing more broadband or more fiber? Why are certain locations getting satellite when they already either have it or fixed wireless? Those were the requirements. This is the approval. And so having that conversation is really critical so people understand the parameters of this program. But we always try to direct them to making sure they're signed up for line extension if they are eligible, and really working with our individual BSL owners, constituents, and local units of government to see if we can navigate where broadband looks in their individual areas and locations. The next slide is around the broadband collaboration, and I just want to point out, when I talked about the Minnesota Broadband Charter, this is what I'm talking about. So when I first started, a lot of questions came around how do we navigate permitting and land use and coordinating in the office. And so we led a group of individuals from all of these other state partner agencies and are having conversations. And with that came that the Office of Broadband did need more capacity, which is why we were able to hire our land use and permitting coordinator. They meet monthly. But this is a way to keep all of those agency professionals and partners knowing what's happening in broadband, helping them to prepare, working together. And since we do have an archaeologist on our team now, she has the credentials for the National Environmental Protection Act, which is required with BEAD. And so this has really leveraged some great partnerships. Ways we can assist within this is we are connecting grantees with appropriate other agencies. We work through the permitting requirements. We try to have conversations, put meetings together with everybody. If there are some challenging areas, we organize complex projects anything else we can do. So we're really trying to be a resource. We're not the end-all, save-all, but we certainly are trying to navigate that process for our grantees. The next is just a little snapshot, a reminder. We did produce a digital opportunity plan through the U.S. Department of Commerce with the Digital Equity Act. This is still part of what we do just in general in our office. It's very important that we are making sure that we are looking at our vision, our goals, and making sure that those are part of the work that we do. So though we do not have any funding anymore to support that work, it's still a fabric of how we are connecting, educating, and reaching out to folks. And then the final slide, I guess I got a couple more, but the Governor's Broadband Task Force, like I said, met today. I don't need to go into great details, but you all get a report each year. You should have it. If you need connecting, please let us know. We just provide technical assistance and administrative support for them. And then finally, looking forward to 2026, we love our jobs. We are very proud to represent and manage the state priorities around broadband, and we will continue to work hard to administer the federal BEAD program as best we can, continuing to run our border line extension program and make sure that that is being executed the way that it should be and in a timely manner. And then certainly always looking for opportunities to communicate, to help support state partners, other partners across the state. I do want to put a pitch that we are hosting our broadband development training series again, which we call Navigating Plus. So we are bringing in different agencies to provide information on the permitting. So whether it's SHPO or DNR will present specifically to broadband and take questions. That has been very popular, so bringing that back. And then we are hosting a Connecting One Minnesota event in 2026, which is April 29th. So I hope you all can make it. The beginning will, the first morning sessions will be more general. In the afternoon, we will have breakout sessions. A lot of them will be specific to BEAD implementation, compliance mapping, et cetera. But this was something that people really enjoyed seeing education-wise. And again, leveraging people being there so that they know how to run and we can work together with the BEAD program and our state program. So with that, that's what I have. Thank you. I really appreciate always the opportunity to be in front of you and your eagerness to learn and support the office, but happy to take questions.
Thank you, Director Mackey. That was very thorough and efficient, too, so thanks for both of those things. I have two quick questions before I open up to everybody else. You mentioned at one point that 50 communities had been designated telecommuter forward. What does that mean?
Yeah, so, I'm sorry. I got to get in the habit again.
That's all right.
Thank you, Chair Putnam. Yes, for the question. So yeah, basically what the communities are saying, it's really important for us to have the tools we need so that people can live and work in communities across the state that they would like to do. So there's some paperwork that goes into it, some initiatives within their communities to do so, and then we designate, they're listed on our website. But it really is about them taking and looking at being able to say, hey, we're a community that cares about people being able to work and thrive, and because of broadband, we're able to do that.
Thank you, Director Mackey. My next question has to do with BEAD and the newer imperative toward satellite and its uses in that spaces. And that's, I understand what the state gets from supporting the installation of infrastructure like broadband. You dig a hole in the ground, you put something in it. What are we paying for when it comes to satellite service?
Well, thank you, Chair Putnam. That is a question we are still working through with NTIA, our federal partners. What we are doing in this program is paying by milestones. So all of our grantees will get paid by certain milestones, and we will lay them out that everybody needs to follow. However, we know with the LEO that looks different. And so we're still trying to work through with NTIA's guidance what a milestone for a LEO will be.
So I understand that there's still a process, Director Mackey, but I'm still kind of curious about this. Does that mean we're essentially paying people's bills? Or are we buying things for their own personal usage? And again, my concern is that with broadband itself, with fiber, it makes sense because it's infrastructure, it's in the ground, the next person who lives in that house is going to be able to use it too, that's a public good. But it sounds like this effort to divert resources towards companies like Starlink, that I'm not sure exactly what we're doing and what we're paying for with that, and if that is going to be truly infrastructure or if we are subsidizing a service, because those are two different activities.
Yes, thank you, Chair Putnam. Excellent question. From what we can gather is with their ability to provide service, we're paying for capacity. We are not able to pay bills for any of our providers. This is not a program that pays for service. It's for deploying broadband infrastructure, and as defined by NTIA, LEOs are part of that. So again, as we're working through this, is a milestone X many subscribers? Is a milestone more capacity, and what that looks like? It's still to be determined, and this is a question that I do get quite often because Minnesota technically has that access already across the state.
Thanks very much. Members, any other questions? Senator Kupek.
Sure, nobody else is going to jump in. So I'm wondering about, back in December, there were some regulations, an executive order tying AI regulations within state to some of the BEAD funding. Where is that at? And how does Minnesota's laws in terms of artificial intelligence centers, does that put us at risk of BEAD funding, or are we okay?
Director Mackey, I forgot too.
Thank you, Chair Putnam, and thank you, Senator Kupek. That is also an excellent question. Yes, there are terms and conditions within the Notice of Funding Award that we are working through with our legal team and the Attorney General team to ensure that we are able to deploy and execute BEAD as best that we can, but it is certainly something we are keeping an eye on. A reminder, the executive order is not specific to BEAD. It is specific to a state in general, so I don't have regulatory or control.
Senator Kupek, we're good.
So just, has there been any, do you know, have been any discussions in terms of where our AI policy stands? Are we going to be, do you know if we're compliant or not compliant? I realize that's beyond your control, but I didn't know if you've been part of those discussions.
Director Mackey.
Or whether you can say, let me throw that caveat there too.
Thank you, Chair Putnam and Senator. Yes, so we are certainly, and I have Devin helping me monitor and dig deeper into that. One of the things with the AI specific that you're asking is NTIA gave themselves till March 11th to define what onerous AI means. And so I will have more information by March 11th.
Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Mackey, you talked about the situation with owners if they don't have enough, don't think their internet is up to speed or they don't have it, they can go on and register. Do they have another way to do it as well? Because if you don't have internet or it's not sufficient, kind of seems like there should be another way to go online or do it, because if you can't go online, you can't go online. What other ways can they do it? And then if we do have constituents with situations like that, what can we do? Pass them on to you and you can follow up with them?
Director Mackey.
Thank you, Chair Putnam, and thank you, Senator Westrom. That's an excellent question. So we do take applications by paper. We also take them by phone call. So our program assistant, Christy, is more than happy and answers the phone, and we'll take applications that way as well and walk them through. Often we just get a phone call with a question, and then we can say, well, hey, let's sign you up for the line extension program. There are also, to your point of not having broadband, when I was talking about mapping, you can actually go on and do speed tests as well. There's a link for that. Now, again, if you don't have broadband, you don't have broadband, but you can also kind of test your speeds and know where you're at. And then those that information is also submitted with the line extension application. So we'll take applications in any form.
Senator Westrom. Members, any other questions? Director Mackey, Mr. Bowdry, thank you very much for hanging out.
Thank you.
Hit the chair.
We're going to do both at once because it's all the same people.
Sure. Okay, because this is the first day of session, we're going to do a 2-for-1 special here this afternoon, and we are going to discuss both Senate File 3583 and 3584 as they are intimately connected, and many of the testifiers will be the same. So we're going to start with that. So Senator Putnam, it's your 2-for-1 deal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members and everyone who's here today. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Senate File 3585 and Senate File 83 and 84. And as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, these both refer to farmer-lender mediation. And anyone who's been to a farm or talked to a farmer in the last year knows that this is an incredibly difficult time to be a farmer. We've had, it's hard to be a farmer anyway, given how you are subject to risks and vicissitudes beyond your control. But now, with tariffs and rising costs of inputs and property taxes, it's an incredibly difficult time to be a farmer, almost as hard as it was in the 1980s. Perhaps as hard as it was in the 1980s. And in 1986, the state government came together and legislated, created a program called farmer-lender mediation because of the extremity and the precarity that faced so many farmers. Farmer-lender mediation is a state program that supports farmers who are in financial distress. You could have an injury or lost a crop, or just right now the economy just stinks, and it's really, really difficult to be a farmer. And a farmer might be facing a creditor who is interested in calling in their debt. Under Minnesota law, if a bank, machinery dealer, or other lender seeks to enforce a debt against a farmer, a debt of at least $15,000 against a farmer, that farmer has a right to choose a 90-day mediation where both parties work with a trained facilitator to reach a mutually agreeable solution. In nearly 90% of the over 1,700 mediations completed last year, they reached a mutually agreeable solution. It's difficult enough to suffer economic crisis, but in moments like this, it's helpful to have someone help you walk through the challenges that you face and help negotiate a path so that the bank and the farmer are both satisfied with the situation. 90% of these mediations that have been conducted within the last year have reached a mutually agreeable solution. This is a program that works. Plain and simply, this program works. Now, the farmer might learn that the operation needs to change, but in many cases, they're able just to manage the debt and keep farming. This program, members, saves farms, and by saving farmers, it saves families and helps all of Minnesota. Now, we have two bills to discuss. The first deals with the sunset that's currently operating with farmer-lender mediation. The first bill, Senate File 3583, will remove that sunset for 5 years, push back that sunset for 5 years to enable the program to maintain. The second bill deals with transitions within that department and enables a little bit more funding to make sure that this program can do the good that it does. I'm guessing, Mr. Chair, that we will still sort of talk about them in sequence. So there might be more to say about the resource later, but at this point, I just wanted to introduce the program to everyone, give us an opportunity to hear from some testifiers, but make sure that everyone up here knows and everyone back there understands just how incredibly important this program is. It is not an option to not move quickly, intentionally, deliberately, to make this program help save farms.
Okay, with that, we will start with some testifiers. First, we have online, virtually, Mary Nell Preisler, Director of the Farmer Lender Mediation at the U of M Extension.
Vice Chair Kupek and fellow senators. I am Mary Nell Preisler. I am the Program Director for the Farmer Lender Mediation Program. And Senator Putnam kind of took part of my talk, so I'll get shorter. In mediation, a farmer in debt has the opportunity to renegotiate, restructure, or resolve farm debt through mediation. The goals of the farmer-lender mediation are to achieve open communication between the parties, to resolve differences, to create a non-hostile environment, define the rights and responsibilities of the debtor and creditor, treat all parties with dignity and respect, produce agreements that are acceptable to all parties involved. I refer to, it should be in your packet, there is an executive summary of the results of the fiscal year 2025. Now, we are on the federal year, so this goes the 1st of October. And I'd like to just go through this a little bit. We had an increase of 28% over 2024 of requests with notices. Those that received notices, they had options. They could file within 14 days, and they could have mediation. If they did not file for mediation in 14 days, then the creditor, the initial creditor, can continue with legal actions. There was a release that will be given to the creditor, and they continue down that legal road. If they request mediation, we have 90 days in that timeline to have mediation sessions, to organize the mediation, to set up times to meet. And because of that timeline of stretching 90 days, so far in the last 4 months, we are averaging about 757 cases that we are working on in some stage of the program. There were a total of, in 4 months now, this is from October 1st until January 30th, there were 694 new mediation notices. We managed to be on the telephone a great deal, educating people about the process, and we have many outside of Minnesota lenders who need to have an explanation that in Minnesota they can't foreclose on property until they've offered mediation. And so we have an estimate of about 57,700 contacts. Now that's going to include every mediation and every telephone call, email, and so forth. The program runs with the equivalency of 5 full-time. There are 8 part-time mediators. Both myself and the program specialist who works with me in the office are mediators too. Then we have 6 that are located around the state. All of them are very experienced mediators. They've been with the program for a long period of time. I use the Minnesota Agricultural Statistic Districts to show you where the mediations for 2025 were coming from. And so the most mediations were in West Central. And then you can read from there on down. I'm about halfway down the page. The type of creditor was sending the initial notices really are more small town banks than anyone. Then we have the implement manufacturers at 32%, and we have Farm Credit Services with all of their entities at 14%. We also make a big difference on Main Street because we have Main Street suppliers that get involved, because if they're going for a judgment, the statute provides that they must have an offer of mediation before filing any further action after they receive the judgment. The total last year was $166 million that we mediated. That does not include the ones that were waived, where they settled for mediation for the whole situation first, or they restructured, renegotiated on their own. Then they received a waiver. The primary commodity was still crops and dairy. Then it went down from there. Other is usually poultry or greenhouses, horses, and a variety of other, there's one even of goats. The type of ownership still remained the sole proprietors. However, we have many corporations that are being formed by families for tax purposes. The average farmer ranged in age from 25 to 87. They owned the land for about 29 years and 581 acres owned and renting 915 acres. Successful mediation requires compromise on the part of both the debtor and the creditor. Farmers may have to change their operation to make it more profitable, liquidate assets, or restructure. Creditors may need to restructure debt or security, reschedule loan payments, and again, restructure. Creditors, a trust is built and solutions are uncovered when parties meet and exchange information in an orderly way. The parties have strong incentives to make their agreements work because they create the agreements themselves. Those who have participated in mediation commonly report that the process resulted in the farmer becoming more prepared to make decisions about the future. Communication between lenders and borrowers is improved. Frustration and tension between the parties is minimized. Are there any questions?
Yes, Senator Kunish.
Thank you for sharing that information. I guess my question is, so there's this huge uptick, and what is causing this huge uptick? And how is that affecting the office that you are obviously in? I mean, like, how many employees are working with farmers and working on these mediations in order to, to prevent devastation by the farmers, but also to get the folks the money that is owed to them? So, like, why is this happening, and how many of you are working on it?
Ms. Preisler?
Senator Kupic, we are working on it with a team approach. We use the Minnesota Department of Agriculture farm advocates. We use the University of Minnesota educators, financial educators. We use the MINSCU system of the farm business management people and our mediators, and we work as a team to try to get accurate figures so that we can make judgments that are constructive for everyone.
Senator Kunish?
What is causing this is the economy. It is very essential that we have a stable, if possible, market. And it's very, very tenuous right now.
Any follow-up, Senator Kunish?
Yep, just a quick follow-up. So for one mediation, how many people do you think it takes to bring it to some kind of a mutual agreement?
Ms. Preisler?
Senator Kunish, I would gather that the average would be 14 to 16 people.
Oh, wow.
Including the farmer and the mediator and an advocate, and maybe some people in the background, tax people. You have to look at the tax ramifications. You'd also have to look at the IRS. What are you going to liquidate, and how is it going to be? And what are the tax ramifications? Otherwise, you have just taken one thing and you've put, now, instead of only owing money to the bank or a lender, you now owe it to IRS. So there are a lot of people that come into play. We also use the Department of Agriculture mental health workers. And we do a lot of referral then to them to help people clear their minds so they can make life decisions.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that, and thank you to the team that's helping our farmers to come to some kind of a conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Dames?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and Director Preisler. Can you tell me about what % of the folks going through mediation actually have a sale, sell out, and leave the farming industry?
Ms. Preisler?
Senator Dames, we don't do a follow-up to find out what goes on. I know that some of these we will work out a bankruptcy without going through Chapter 12. We work out an organization without going through the court system. Or we prepare it so that they can go through the court system, but they have a better understanding of exactly what will happen. I don't have a percentage because we don't follow up. Once we are done with mediation, then it is turned back to the parties to do what they need to do.
Senator Dames?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director Preisler.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your time, and we'll move on to the next testifier, Stu Laurie from Farmers Union. State your name, you know the drill.
Thank you, Chair Kupek and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Stu Laurie, Government Relations Director for Minnesota Farmers Union. And on behalf of our organization, I'm glad to share our strongest support for Chair Putnam's bills to extend and strengthen farmer-lender mediation. At our state convention in November, our members made it a top priority to address the growing financial economic challenges in farm country, and a top priority within that was extending and adding support to Minnesota's farmer lender mediation program. Just, one stat that sticks with me, 2024, the last year that we have full data from Farm Business Management, was the lowest farm income since the 1990s, maybe in my lifetime. Talking to our members who are working with Farm Business Management instructors, the prospect for the coming year is not looking better, particularly for row crop producers. So when it comes to stabilizing the farm economy, as Director Preisler mentioned, a lot of those levers are on the federal level, but a key piece of Minnesota's farm safety net when we think about the farm advocates, the farm stress work that we do, is Minnesota's farmer lender mediation program. It's a program that you hope you never need, but you're glad that it's there when you do. I'll share just two stories. I was looking through notes, things we've heard from members. One was a dairy farmer. He had an injury that prevented him from dairying, doing the work of working on a dairy farm. So he's having to, rely on neighbors, hiring folks. He got behind on some debt, was having trouble working with a lender, and mediators were able to come in. They were able to resolve that debt, and ultimately he's still farming. He no longer dairies, but he raises beef cattle. Another story from a member who still farms today. She, unbeknownst to her, her husband was struggling with a gambling addiction and had gotten them into extremely difficult financial position. She only learned of that when folks literally came to her farm and said, "Hey, we need to take your equipment," and mediators were able to come in and help her resolve that. So again, these are some of the worst months and of a farmer's life, but oftentimes from the stories that we hear, it does allow them to keep farming. Maybe it doesn't look the same, but they are able to continue going forward. So we so appreciate you hearing this. We appreciate that you heard it on the first day in the middle of a snowstorm and with a packed committee hearing. We think that sends a strong message to our members, and thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Laurie? Seeing none, we will move over to Mr. Peterson from Farm Bureau. You as well know the drill, so I'm familiar with this committee slightly.
Thank you, Chair Kupek. For the record, my name is Hunter Peterson. I'm the Public Policy Specialist for Minnesota Farm Bureau Federation. On behalf of our over 30,000 family farm and ranch members across the state, I'd like to thank Chair Putnam for bringing these two bills forward. Very important and very timely. Our organization supports extending the Farmer Lender Mediation Act and hiring some additional program staff to make sure that it works. Farmers obviously rely on credit to finance their operations by and large. And so in a time where we have an extremely challenging farm economy, there are people who are struggling to manage their debt, and having these options on the table through the Farmer Lender Mediation Program to renegotiate, restructure, or resolve their debt with their creditors is super important. And I think it's, indicative of the fact too that requests for mediation are up on the uptick. So, I think extending this program is, like Chair Putnam said, going to help save family farms, and so very timely to extend it now. So thank you for the opportunity to testify on the bills, and appreciate it.
Any questions, Mr. Peterson? Okay, thank you. Seeing none. Commissioner, would you like to come up? The other Peterson, spelled differently.
Mr. Chairman, members, Tom Peterson, Commissioner for the Department of Agriculture. I want to speak in favor of extending the farmer lender mediation, especially as Director Preisler noted. A lot of times what happens when this begins is we at the department, with help from you, have 11 farm advocates. And I always want to remind folks of that. So when you, because you get calls as senators of farmers that are in distress, what do you do? You know, who do you do? First call a lot of times should be to one of our farm advocates. We have 11 of them across the state. And what they do a lot of times is help work with the banker, get that farmer into a mediation type program. And as we noted, mediations in January 2026, 226 in 2024, for example, we had 45 in January. So we know we see a large increase. And as Mary Nell noted, 700 in the last 4 months. In 2024, in those same 4 months, we had about 270. So you can see almost more than doubling of that. And we know from what we look at, when we look at these numbers of higher mediations every month, how important this program is. As Stu Laurie just mentioned, we know on the crop side, as we look at this, the bankers that have been calling me the last couple of weeks is alarming. I don't get calls from bankers like every day, but this has been it, and especially out in western Minnesota, the situation with sugar beets is very worrisome. As we look at, I had a banker call me, and for one of the co-ops, he does a third of the loans for his bank. He said they're going to lose anywhere from $750 to $1,000 an acre. And so when you look at that and then, talking to those farmers and they look at how is this going to, what are our options and everything, as we get into those decisions, that is very helpful to have. I personally have had the opportunity to sit through many mediations. A lot of times farmers will invite me to be there. As Mary Nell said, sometimes there's 15 people in the room. They're very difficult. But most of the time, we're able to work something out. And what that does is a lot of times the advocate, the mediator, it helps buy the farmer some time. I just told you earlier today, we just found out we have 1,000 less farms in the last 2 years. So I appreciate Senator Putnam bringing this forward. I appreciate that this has been extended every 4 or 5 years during the 25 years I've been working here, because I personally have seen the amount of farms that is saved. So thank you, and I encourage your support.
Okay. Members, any questions? Senator Holmstrom.
Commissioner, so Senator Dames had asked this question earlier, and I guess I want to follow up with you because you have more on the ground experience with these farmers in the follow-up. What percentage, if you had to put a number on it, do you see that it actually saves the farm long-term, or how often is it a sellout?
Commissioner Peterson.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Holmstrom, I think Mary Nell, the average, they'll say 90%. And I'd say that's pretty accurate. A lot of times that farmers are able to go in and they're tough. Boy, they're tough, and I've been in ones where, it does result in a bankruptcy or selling the farm. And unfortunately that is the, kind of issue right now with prices. Like, you get to the old saying that farmers will say on paper, they're worth a lot of money because their wealth is in the land or their machinery or equipment, but they can't buy a cup of coffee. They don't have liquid cash because they've used up all those assets. And so trying to get in and having all those people come in and look at that, a lot of times there's something else going on in that mediation has been noted, whether it's a health issue, it might be a dispute with an agency or something else, not the Department of Ag, but that causes these things to happen. So I'm a big believer in it. I know many farmers that this has helped in all across the state, all different sizes. It can be a very small farm, it can be the very large farm, and so I really do encourage your support.
Senator Holmstrom, anything else?
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Okay. Then would you like to move first Senate File 3583, Senator Putnam, other comments, or do you want to move ahead?
I would just briefly, if I could, Mr. Chair, want to take a moment of privilege to thank Ms. Preisler for all of her work with the farmers she's worked with and all of her staff and all of her team and the people she's helped and the lives she's saved. I also want to direct members to your packets to see some of the letters of support for this bill. One that jumps out clearly is one signed by the Farmers Union, Farmers Bureau Federation, Land Stewardship Project, Minnesota Corn, Association of Wheat Growers, Soybean Growers, Cattlemen, and Turkey Growers all believe in this program. Minnesota agriculture believes in this program. We should too. But I also want to point out a letter from our friends from Compeer and Ag Country, the actual lenders themselves. The banks want this too. So please, members, understand also that a couple weeks ago, Ranking Member Westrom and I spoke at the Ag Expo down in Mankato. And I made clear at that point, I'd like to make clear again, that this is a priority of the chair. This bill is extremely important for farmers, and it's something that we're going to work very hard for. So thank you all for your support. And Mr. Chair, I would like to move that Senate File 3583 be recommended to pass and referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 3583 is passed and, sorry, on its way to judiciary. All right, with that, we will move on to Senate File 3584.
Members, given the time and the weather, I want to be as efficient as possible, not go over the program again necessarily, but just talk a little bit about this bill and the additional funding that it suggests. This is a modest increase of $150,000 to the program to hire additional staff to help manage the increase in mediations and the difficulties that they're facing. This bill is drafted for the Higher Education Committee because that's where the program is housed through the University of Minnesota. So when we're done with it, that's hopefully where we're going to send it. The current team includes 1 full-time director, 1 full-time specialist, and 5 part-time mediators. But together they managed over 2,000 requests for mediation last year, settling an estimated $166 million in debt. These folks just need a little bit more help to do all the work that they're doing. They already did. They already were overworked. But given the things that we're seeing in ag land right now, they need a little bit more help to help the people who need the help. So members, I would ask for your support for this provision as well.
Members, comments on this part of the bill. Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, just to kind of wrap up, I'll kind of encapsulate my comments and questions, but Chair Putnam, on the $150,000, first of all, that presumes we have that to spend, but would this just buy temporary additional staff, or what would it all cover? And then in the interest of moving things along, I didn't necessarily want to comment on the other bill and this bill. So one of the other things I just think we should maybe keep in mind is the limit of these loans is down to as low as $15,000. I'd be interested to know how many loans, and maybe Ms. Preisler has a quick answer, that they work on are under $50,000 or $100,000. Is the vast majority $15,000, $20,000 loans, or is that kind of an artificially low cap that we should maybe consider looking at raising, given the size and how most operations, if you're farming and depending on that income, are probably much larger than that. So two kind of questions in that question.
Ms. Preisler is here online, if you'd like to answer that.
Senator Westrom, they range in all the way from even under 15,000. Because of the communication, we have, especially Farm Service Agency, serving out notices that are under 15,000 because of the communication skills that can happen, and they can get something resolved. Now, it goes all the way from the 60 acres, so it has to be $15,000 or 60 acres. That makes it qualify for farmer lender mandatory mediation. At that point then, so we have the whole gamut. We have everything from 60-acre farm to thousands of acres. I could go through my Excel sheet and I can organize that, and I could have an answer for you, but I would have to explore that first.
Senator Westrom?
Mr. Chair, no, that, just the general information is good enough. You're busy enough, that's not necessary work on your behalf, but appreciate your input. The 150,000, what would that go towards, Mr. Chair and Senator Putnam? Generally speaking, and this extension can happen with or without the money. The extension, U of M is kind of overall sees this area and is responsible for the budget and management of it ultimately, aren't they?
Senator Putnam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Westrom. As to the duration of the potential appropriation, I think Senator Holstrom is going to remind us in a little bit that it's a one-time thing. That is, by and large, a transitional moment to deal with the immediate crisis that we face right now in this moment. As to whether or not we'll get the resources, well, we can't know until we ask. And so that's a big reason why I think that we should. And it's my understanding that this would go towards essentially one FTE to deal with the immediate crisis that we're experiencing right now. But again, it is a one-time, short-term Band-Aid of sorts.
Senator Westrom, anything else? Foreshadowing, Senator Holstrom.
Yes, I'd like to offer the A1 amendment.
Okay, members, Senator Holstrom offers the A1 amendment, which you should have before you. Senator Holstrom, would you like to describe your amendment?
Yes, after page 1, line 9, after the final period, it just adds that this is a one-time appropriation.
Members, any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I would add that I'm fighting back my urge to haze Senator Holstrom because I believe this is probably his first legislative activity. So I hope that we can discuss this for hours, but instead I'll just accept it as friendly because that's the intent of the bill.
You're not going to go into, should that really be a period or should there be a comma thrown in there too? Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, just as we're passing this out or the other one we just previously did, as much as we can do, Senator Putnam want to add support to try to get this on its own on the floor early in session, as would I support that for the RFA bill that I have and others may have for that bonding dollars to not get wrapped up in the last 30 or 60 days of session. So anything we can do to help you do that, anything you can do to help advocate for that, I think we'd find unanimous support on our committee here, and hopefully we can keep them separate, move them quick, and that would be good for agriculture.
Thank you very much, Senator Westrom. That is the goal. That's the hope. So thanks for your support.
Okay, we still need to pass this A1 amendment or shoot it down. Any other comments on the A1? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the A1 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? A1 amendment to Senate File 3584 is adopted. Senator Putnam.
Thank you all for the conversation and for your attention to this important issue. Members and Mr. Chair, I would like to move that Senate File 3584 be recommended to pass and refer to the Committee on Higher Education. As amended.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Oops, Senate File 3584 then is passed and on its way to higher education. As amended.
So for those who are still here, we just made a joke that was too good not to share, and that all I had left to do is to forecast what happens next week, and I think that Senator Kupek is much more qualified to do a forecast than I am. Folks, next week on Monday, February 23rd, this is a day for our Veterans and Military Affairs element of the committee. So that's what we're going to be talking about that day, as we have in past years. We're going to keep the days distinct to show respect for both jurisdictions. So on Monday, 2/23, we're going to hear from County Veteran Service Officers, an update on the Military Museum, and we're going to get an update on the Veteran Suicide Report, efforts to help veterans deal with their mental health concerns in that regard. And then on Wednesday, 2/25, that's Dairy Day. I'm going to say that again for Senator Westrom because that means ice cream. Dairy Day, Wednesday the 25th. We'll talk about the Dairy with an I bill, some stuff about Forever Green, and a couple additional bills to be announced later. Thanks very much, everyone. We are now adjourned.